President Trump looking to delay a high-stakes summit with China's Xi Jinping as the conflict with Iran rages on. Trump's economic team has been meeting with their Chinese counterparts in Paris, discussing trade, tariffs, technology competition. But now the White House is urging China to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz, although the president says that's not why he wants to push back his trip to Beijing.
We're resetting the meeting, and it looks like it'll take place in about 5 weeks. We're working with China. They were fine with it. We're going to say, I look forward to seeing President Xi. He looks forward to seeing me, I think. But I do look forward to seeing him. We have a good relationship with China. China actually has become economically for us very good, as you know. It's much different than it was in the past. And we have a very good working relationship with China. So we're making it in about 5 or 6 weeks.
So, Jonathan, I don't think the meeting getting delayed is that big of a deal. You can disagree with me if you think otherwise. I think a bigger deal is the desire to have China participate in securing the Strait of Hormuz. I realize a lot of their oil comes through there, okay? But do you want to see China get involved in protecting that strait?
I would like to see that, and I think delaying the trip is actually a smart move by the president. Look, he should delay the trip. I think he should delay a lot of golf. I think he should delay fancy dinners. I think he should delay, frankly, a lot of fun that he otherwise would have. People's kids are at risk. America is at war. People's lives are at risk. And I think he should be focused on information, strategy, the morale of the troops, reports from the front lines, if you will. So, look, the president is commander-in-chief. Now is the time he should act like it.
I heard a reaction out of you, Taylor, on the idea of China being involved militarily in the Strait of Hormuz. You don't want him in there.
I don't think I do. I don't think maybe I'm coming on your side, Brian. I don't think I want China anywhere near there, because once they go in, do they go out? Do they just stay there? Do they stay there forever? Do they then control the way they've been doing with the Panama Canal? So I'm kind of like, keep them out. I think we have enough pressure. Maybe NATO will eventually step up. President Trump even said we had the best relationship with the UK until Keir Starmer came in. There's a lot of words flying right now. Let's see if some NATO people can step up eventually. Maybe we don't need them. Maybe we can do it on ourselves. Let's give the president 2 to 3 more weeks, like we said at the last block that we promised we'd let him do. Let's see how the strait can open up then.
I think it's dangerous.
I agree.
It's way too dangerous. And think about who they're getting most of their oil from. They're getting it from the Iranians. They're getting it from the Russians. They've been buying it at a discount from our enemies. You can't bring them in there even for this purpose. It almost will backfire and strengthen what the president is trying to do, which is to defang this regime. I just don't think China can be anywhere near this. The president publicly is going to say that he doesn't want to see other nations starved of oil. And I do believe that he believes that. But I'm not necessarily sure that he believes that when it comes to China, because they're learning a valuable lesson right now. Number one, if they want oil, they're going to have to find a way to pay for it retail as they dwindle, and move through the stockpiles that they've accumulated. But he wants to squeeze them as much as humanly possible as he's heading into this negotiation. So you don't bring them anywhere near this.
Look, I'm with you guys, Jackie and Taylor. Dagan, though, I wonder.
You're not with me.
Well, I don't know where you are yet on this one. We shall see. But I also wonder, is President Trump saying he wants them there not because he really does, but because he wants to finally put them on the spot? They've been very much in the shadows on this. Haven't really said a lot, haven't done a lot. Is he trying to kind of smoke them out into the open and say, you need to declare to the world, are you with the Iranians or are you with us? I don't know. What do you think?
Potentially, because China is still buying oil from Iran. China is still importing oil from Iran. Iran's still loading it on Carr Island. That could potentially be, we know that there were, the U.S. military bombed Carr Island, but did not take out the petroleum loading. But we got 2,500 Marines going, heading it to the region, 2,500 more sailors. I said that last hour. But maybe that's next. we shall see. But this is because China is funneling money to the regime to attack Middle Eastern allies and the United States and our men and women in uniform. One thing that was of note, I thought it was interesting that the Wall Street Journal wrote, is that President Trump's comment on Sunday that we may delay a trip to China, planned for March 31st, this is the editorial board, is a good sign that the president is not limiting the war to arbitrary deadlines. That was just a message that we're just working on a military timeline of getting the job done bit by bit, piece by piece. I thought that was interesting.
I think
nonetheless.
this is one of those rhetorical questions of his that he throws out there, even though he knows what the answer is going to be. So that
Which one? Which question?
the China question.
Okay.
So that he's creating. When I say he's always making his case, he's laying his legal case out for when he gets tougher on China. Then he'll use this.
Jonathan?
Well, it's pretty obvious why this regime needs to be toppled. As long as they're able to, at a whim, stop trade in the Straits of Hormuz, they can bring truly the world's economy to a halt. And if we wait around for them to truly achieve the nuclear weapons they've been talking about for years, then all bets are off the table. Then any conventional non-nuclear answer is off the table to dealing with this regime, which I said, this is not the United States or Israel being belligerent against some innocent, poor Middle Eastern regime. They have been outwardly hostile towards the United States for decades. Death to America, death to Israel. So, I mean, I think to make the threat non-threatening should be the objective. The mullahs have to go.
Right, even if it means escalate to defeat. Defeat is the goal.
You can't win a war. You either win a war or you wait around to fight it again another day. I think America has been pushing, as they say, kicking the can down the road when it comes to the Islamic theocracy in Iran since 1979.
And look, I think Donald Trump is making everyone show their cards right now. Who you're really with. Gulf states, who you're really with. China, who you're really with.
NATO.
Show your cards. And Iran showed its cards, and you know what it did? It bombed its neighbors. And I guarantee every one of those neighbors is saying, how fast can I build a new pipeline to get myself out of the Gulf and into the Red Sea? They're all thinking that right now.
And how quickly can I buy some more defensive and maybe offensive weapons from the United States?
From the United States. Everyone show your cards. Don't miss